Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in again to episode 5 of this series of webinars. My name is Leigh Henderson, and I'm joined today by Zach Bennett. Hello, Zach.
Hi, everyone.
Today, episode 5, we're going to be talking about empowering your employees and making their transition to Microsoft Teams easy. For me, this is the point where this becomes important and effective is once you've planned and mapped out all of your other requirements. We've talked about your on-premises requirements, your analog requirements. We've talked about your call flows, selecting your provider, all of these sort of steps. Empowering your employees to get Teams and use Teams effectively is very important. Now, traditionally, we would have walked into this sort of scenario and thought, okay, well, we're going to need a whole bunch of hand-holding, we're going to need formal training, we're going to need super robust support solutions, and we need to map this out and really plan this super duper to the nth degree and have time frames for each migration and so on and so forth, which is not necessarily true, because these days we're working with a much more of a modern mindset when it comes to training around this system. So Zach, when it comes to the modern mindset and the modern way of training, what does that spark for you?
One thing for me is kind of it's organizations nowadays, for me, around training, find it much easier to adopt Microsoft Teams phone if they have what we call a champions network. Mm-hmm. So what a champions network is, these are individual users that are either already using Teams or maybe have already used Teams in a different organization, and these are going to be as they're called, your champions internally inside your organization. So they're the ones that are gonna go out and search for that extra information. Maybe they're, like we said, someone that's already used Teams, or a specific IT user, or someone that's interested in a technology. They're gonna go out and search for extra information, but importantly, they're also gonna disseminate that information on your behalf. Yep. So instead of having to hold hour-long training sessions where people may not listen or people may not turn up, yep, it's that sort of much more kind of ad hoc approach of training of people are much more likely to go and ask a colleague, oh, how do I transfer that call again? That's where your champion network can really step up and say, I'll show you, yeah, and step in, rather than, oh, how do I transfer a call? Let me try and search and try and find that information out on a video through some web pages.
Yeah, and that network, when you first work and find your champions, that network of people meshes and grows in a really organic way, because that's how information flows through an organization. So, if Zach and I were sitting next to each other and I said, do you remember how I did the group calls, or, how did I set up my delegates? And Zach could be just like, oh yeah, okay. And he could jump to a web page which has links to the training resources and go, oh, here, grab this one. That's what you need. Or just jump over and show me. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And this is not something that's new with Teams. This is something that Microsoft have been working on and perfecting for a long, long time. And they've proven that this Champions Network and self-serve training is a far more efficient and effective and, quite frankly, effective way of your users getting to understand this new system. And it helps too that, Teams is a very familiar platform, right? It's a very simple platform. It's designed from a point of view of being very similar to the rest of the applications in the Microsoft suite and many other applications that are out there. So for me, if your users are already using Teams, then, well, they're already familiar with the user interface, right? They're already familiar with making a telephone call or a Teams call to another user. So logically, to move from calling with Teams to Teams calling is not a terrible stretch. It's not a lot that needs to be added into how this works.
I mean, even between mobile and desktop environments, between Mac and Windows, between web and, and any of the other kind of platforms that we've mentioned, Microsoft do a really good job of keeping that interface very similar.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what kind of end device you're using for the Microsoft Teams client, you're going to see a very, very familiar experience.
Yeah, and I think it's important to sort of highlight there that the user interface is very similar because they want to keep that same look, but it's also the user experience. Where the buttons are, what order you have to press things. It's not different between a soft phone, i.e. the Teams client, and a hard phone, i.e. a Teams phone. It's exactly the same buttons on the screen that you need to touch to make that call go from speaking to you to being on hold and ringing on someone else's client. And mobile is the same. It is exactly the same look and feel in each of those scenarios. So that you don't need to have, well, here's your desktop training and here's your Mac desktop training and here's your web training and here's the same training covers them all, the same training material.
Yeah.
But I mean, that being said, we're getting to the point now where the user experience for a lot of the software that we use is really mature to the point where a lot of the time users, yes, you provide them with the training material, but a lot of users will just be able to see, okay, well, I need to hang up this call. What do I do? Oh, there's a big red thing with a handset icon on it. That's probably what I need to do to hang up this call. And I mean, one of the favorite ones that we sort of talk about is there's a lot of pieces of software that we use on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I think one of the biggest ones that I hate to say the name of a direct competitor, but a lot of people during COVID needed a rapid way to work from home and to have meetings. And a lot of people during COVID had not really selected a solution and they just went, look, Zoom is there, we'll just use Zoom. They didn't have to worry about training for Zoom because it's an intuitive product. Some people jumped onto Microsoft Teams and the same goes there. And beyond that, there are platforms that we use every day that training was not provided. I mean, sometimes things go wrong. We've all seen someone post a Google search into Facebook. That does happen, but that's okay because someone can say, hey, by the way, that's not a search box, that's your post box. Oh, okay, cool. And that's champion training, right? And the same goes with other applications. Like I can have a FaceTime call with my grandparents. My mum can send me messages in WhatsApp, although I don't personally use WhatsApp. I use Signal, but that's just me. We can help people to dive in and use a new piece of software very, very quickly and easily. So I mean, that's a fairly big thing for me. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, you're 100% sure. It's people don't reach out and say, oh, I need help creating a WhatsApp group. It's very intuitive. You can do that yourself. And a lot of that information now kind of bleeds over, that SaaS kind of intuitive model of being able to use an application into Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
Some of my customers, even running phone system demos, making a one-to-one call in Teams and making a PSTN call in Teams is the same window. It's very similar. Once you're in that call, the first thing I say is, you're in a Teams call. You can tell you're in a Teams call. Big red leave button in the top right-hand corner, duration in the top left-hand corner. These sorts of things, they're the same. They're not super different. You may be dialing slightly differently if you're typing a PSTN number into a dial pad. But that's very intuitive. You can figure that out.
I totally agree. And I mean, the one of the things that I've had my customers ask is, well, like, my users are used to using a hard phone. They're accustomed to it. They need to have a hard phone, and then they need training on said hard phone. To which my response is, look, you can have a hard phone, but it looks and drives exactly like a Teams client because it's an Android-based Teams client that's built into a hard phone. So, yeah, those same training resources apply to the hard phone that do to your Teams client. And beyond that, those hard phone users, I've always stated this, they're going to go, well, do I need a hard phone? Or do I have a phone in my pocket that can run Teams and give me the access that I need?
Yeah.
A lot of the time when offered with that choice and that realization, a lot of the people who desperately want a hard phone will go, no, I'll just use my mobile. That's fine. And they go from, I need a hard phone, I'm used to it, to I love being able to use Teams and access my number anywhere because it's always in my pocket. That's a very, very powerful thing.
Just another thing while we're on the hard phone front, one thing that's been mentioned to me is, when UIs are updated on phones, because sometimes they may be slightly different to what the Teams client has. One important aspect to remember is functionality is named the same thing. Yeah. So call forwarding, if I'm talking to someone that doesn't have a desk phone and I go, I need to set up call forwarding, on my Teams client, it's still going to be called call forwarding. And on my desk phone, it's still going to be called call forwarding. Delegates, all of this naming of functionality and features is the exact same across the set.
Yes.
So it's very simple for you to be able to look at a maybe slightly different UI or updated UI on a phone. Oh, delegates. That's where my delegates are then. I know I was speaking to Leigh about delegates. Click into that, then you're in that delegate screen. There's not a mismatch of naming conventions between those two modalities.
Yeah. And I mean, we would have once been using, there's a hard button for divert. Okay, well, some phones actually do have hard keys. Some of them have no physical buttons whatsoever, with the exception of essentially the receiver switch and a mute button. I won't go into too much detail about those physical devices, but if I choose to use a hard key because I want to use that hard key, then I can use that hard key. But then there's also, on screen, you can press the more actions and press transfer in exactly the same way that you do on the soft phone. Because, again, it's just Teams.
Yep.
So, and we've talked about the modern mindset. We've talked about the sort of, how simple it is to use Teams. But we still want to provide our users with something. So, what would be the first sort of thing that you would look at giving to your champions so that they can, or more accurately, informing your champions of, so that they can then disseminate that information down to the other users?
So training resource wise, there's usually a couple of different camps about how you're gonna disseminate that information to your users. You can either have a much more visual learner, that just wants, a YouTube video. I will watch a YouTube video about how to forward a call, and then I will understand exactly what to do.
Yep.
Or you'll have that other group which will want a more text-based solution,
like a list of
that they can
steps, nice, easy
exactly
steps. Yeah,
something they can have open on the screen and then refer back to whenever they need. Luckily for us, and luckily for organizations, Microsoft have a great resources on both of these things. So they have a YouTube playlist which is updated fairly regularly. with new videos and also updated videos when, things like major UI changes happen, that you'll be able to share, to your users, maybe put on a SharePoint site, put on an intranet site, that sort of thing. So users can go and watch those videos. And then conversely, there is a text-based version of that as well on the support.microsoft.com website, which has screenshots and step-by-steps about how to do the same things that are in the videos, but just in text format.
I think the best thing about those is there's videos which is like, hey, welcome to Teams calling, and it gives you that nice long walkthrough. People will be happy with that. And then there's welcome to Teams phone. Here's how to transfer a call. Here's how to change your ringtone. Here's how to, and it's set into individual little chunks so someone can just get in and read that one thing that they want, absorb that knowledge, and then go about their day. It doesn't need to be we need you in the training room for 2 hours to run through the full list of features that, a lot of people probably just need to answer a call and hang up. Make a call and hang up. They're probably not transferring dozens of calls every day. Maybe they might need to know how to add another user to a call, right? And that'll be something that user may need to do once a week or so. But yeah, why bombard them with everything when you can just say, these are the bits that you need? I think the intranet one is very, very important. Like having a central location which can be sent out to your champions, and to the champions, you're going to be relying on them to know more and be more curious, and investigate what is available to them. But it is very important for everyone to know or to be able to find out where these resources are.
Yeah.
In addition to providing these two lists of training assets via, a central location, I think it's rather important to really telegraph this to your users leading up to the deployment, right? And that goes with our standard. So when we do a project and we're doing a managed rollout for our customers, we will do T- email, right? So on the lead up, we'll say, hey, Teams is coming. You tend to manage more of these than I do, Zach. Do you want to lead me through it?
Yeah, so maybe it works really well with kind of multinational organizations, or if you're working in an organization with thousands of users, one thing you're not going to want to do is let's set up 100 people sessions and teach every single one of these people what to do. With all the information that we spoke about today around kind of empowering your users, getting that champion network built, a great thing to coincide with that is this T- approach. So this will effectively be, you choose an arbitrary date, but let's say 30 days. So 30 days, email blast goes out. You can do leaflets on walls inside of offices if you want. Teams is coming. Teams phone is coming. Teams, our old system is going, and that's kind of your first time you're mentioning it. Mm-hmm. And then 14 days before, again T- 14 days or 2 weeks, another bit of information. Oh hey, Teams is still coming. Here's some resource pages. Here's a SharePoint. Here's an intranet link. If you want to get ahead of the game, if you want to start looking at these things, mm-hmm. And then you do a 1 week. T- 1 week, you give more information, you let them know potentially if you would have already had your champions network built, who's their local champion for the office, for the team, for example. You can start name dropping particular people if you like. This person is going to be your team's champion. And then day before, T- 1 day, Teams is coming tomorrow, let everybody know that this is coming. And I've found that with organizations, the response is really good because you're not springing it on customers, on users at the last second that Teams is here now. Your Cisco phone isn't ringing anymore, and then there's that mad panic of well, I need training and I haven't been trained. You've give the kind of opportunity to go and search that training out themselves, speak to champions, that sort of information.
Yep.
You've already empowered your users by giving them that. And, the response that I found is great. And I've been shocked by the amount of customers that have kind of gone, yeah, we've just moved to Teams and everybody just picked it up.
Yep.
There's not... It's quite scary to have a brand new system, but especially if you're already using Teams, like we spoke about, the jump is not as big as some organizations will originally think.
Yeah. I mean, I did a deployment a little while ago, which was quite large. And the response was, okay, well, we want to talk about, and look, we can consult on it. They said, we want a full training course and we want to make sure that everyone receives the same training. But we showed them, okay, well, here is the modern mindset. Here is the modern approach. And they were doubtful at first. They thought, well, we're not sure of our users. We're not sure. And once they sort of had a bit of a look deeper at what material was available, and then they spoke to some of their downstream users, the users were like, oh, that seems pretty easy. And honestly, when we went live, that self-serve, here's everything that you need to know. Just look at either of these, the Microsoft playlist or the Microsoft Learn site. Once that was in the hands of their users, it was absolutely fine. I will say, you potentially will still have people that flat out don't believe that their users are going to be okay. And I still see it on a daily basis where customers will go, yeah, we just want to make sure that our receptionists have full proper training. And we need that, and we need a hypercare person to support them on the first day. And look, that is, I'm not saying that it's not impossible to do structured training. Not at all. It is definitely something that you can seek out. So we still get asked to do it, obviously. There are training providers that exist, and they can provide additional resources on top of what Microsoft already provides. They can provide customized resources, and they can provide essentially a full online demonstration. I've done those in the past where I've done a demonstration of the Teams client. I've walked through placing, receiving, merging calls, all of the different options that the Teams client can do, all of the different configurations that are available within the Teams client. And that's then recorded and saved. But it's been my experience being able to see the utilization of that most people aren't going to go, I need to know how to do this one thing. I'll replay this hour-long session.
Yeah.
It's much more likely for them to go, I'll just search this Microsoft playlist on YouTube. Oh, well, there it is. Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think there was a customer that we did recently. We did a migration for them. What was the feedback that they gave you about the training mechanisms and solutions that we provided to them?
So this was again a multinational organization that had offices all the way around the world, and when we originally went in to speak to this customer, it started off as how are we going to train my near on 10,000 users how to use this new system. And we had a couple of conversations with them around basically what we spoke about today around well, they're already using Teams, and yeah I guess they are. And we had some conversations about what resources are already available, and is this enough, do you still need training sessions, that sort of thing. we mentioned that T- approach that I said before. They put that into practice, and the response was that works really well. You know, that they could kind of drip feed this information whilst also having that champion network available to teach their users. And, you know, I mentioned it before, but that was one of the customers that, you know, after project had been complete across all the sites, they kind of came to us and that was much easier than we thought. You know, we were expecting, I'm going to have to train 10,000 people how to pick up a phone and dial a number, you know, like we did when we moved to our old system.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't the case.
I also like the customization that you guys did with the T- structure, where it was sort of split. So you had Teams phone is coming, here are the resources, and that was kind of company wide. But then on each individual site, that's when you did, and you know, that way it's sort of Teams phone is coming as an update. This site is the next one to go, and then the T- count kicked off for that site. Then the next one that came out still went out globally. Here is the next site. So everyone was aware that Teams is coming for everyone. And then the individual information went down to each site as they progressed through their rollout map. That was quite nice. I really, that was a good design on your behalf.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much got us covered off. You know, that's what your users are going to experience and what they're going to have access to during an Operator Connect rollout. We'll leave some links to the YouTube playlist as well as the Microsoft Office support pages in the description below, so that you can see for yourself just what that information looks like. So we'll sign off there. Next week, though, is going to be very exciting because we're stepping into the future. We're going to be talking about some exciting things that are going to be happening for Microsoft and for Teams calling very, very shortly. So, Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Leigh.
You're welcome. Everyone out there, thank you as well for joining us today. And we shall see you next week.
Cheers all. Bye.
Bye-bye.